Let's talk about the one that no longer is. We went into this season with 7, and one of them has been filled here with the New England Patriots signing Mike Vrabel. So there's certainly some background I think that we got to talk about before I sort of ask you what you thought of this head coaching hire and really how we got here. But Jerod Mayo was the head coach this past year. It's first year in, what was it, 22 seasons, something like that, with Bill Belichick not as the head coach of the New England Patriots. Actually, it might have been longer than that. And it was like, all right, well, it's the first year. The Patriots have probably the worst roster in the NFL on paper. Yeah, they didn't perform very well, but they were winning a little bit down the stretch and felt like it was kind of going in the right direction, but we didn't have all of the answers for exactly what was going on behind the scenes. Ultimately, they pulled the plug after 1 year, and they end up bringing back another familiar face in Mike Vrabel. So just overall, how we got here with the Patriots, I'm very curious. Like, are you upset about this process? Is it just more of a, hey, they tried with Jerod Mayo, it didn't work, we're moving on, and then we'll get into the Vrabel stuff a little bit after?
I think they just, at the end of the day, and look, there were issues with the process and how it all went down, and for us, obviously it was shocking to see because usually, teams usually wait till the next day to fire their coach. They fired Jerod Mayo right after the win over the Bills a couple Sundays ago, right? And I think, well knowing that they wanted Mike Vrabel to be their coach the entire time, and there's obviously going to be a lot of arguing about how that process all went down. But I think we got here because it was always going to be really, really hard to replace Tom Brady when he left. And because Mac Jones for a year, that worked, and then that kind of crumbled because they couldn't put enough offensive talent around him. That's what you still have right now with Drake May. And I think we saw enough flashes from Drake May this season to think he can be the franchise quarterback. But the goal for this offseason has to be to surround Drake May with as much talent as possible. They have the most cap space in football. They have the 4th overall pick. I think that's the story because I do think they have a serviceable defense that could play even better if they have a functional offense that can keep them off the field, right? But I think that's the only goal here. And if they felt like Jerod Mayo, and I know there was some things with media relations and sometimes at the press conferences that didn't go great, it just seems like they wanted an experienced coach. They wanted Vrabel. Vrabel wanted to be there. We know he's a lifelong Patriot. I just think it's a hire that makes sense when you think about just trying to stabilize everything post-Belichick, right? Because it's gotten kind of unstable the last 3 years, especially personnel-wise. Get in here, get some functional pieces on the offensive line, find you some weapons in free agency and in the draft, and then start really building this thing around Drake May.
Look, in terms of how we got here for the Patriots, I hate it, right? I mean, like, the process was terrible for them. Bill Belichick is there for so many years. It was reported that it was in Jerod Mayo's contract that he was going to be the next head coach of this team, which feels a little disingenuous anyways to hiring a head coach. But they thought they had their guy on the coaching staff. The thing that I don't like the most about it is Jerod Mayo was the linebackers coach for the Patriots for 4 years. Like, if you want to criticize how he was as a head coach behind the scenes, and that's ultimately why you end up moving on from him, okay, I understand that. But Dalton, it's hard for me to really give the Patriots that much of an excuse because he was there. Like, he was on the staff. And was he the defensive coordinator? No. Was he the head coach? No. And I understand that there's other responsibilities that come with it, but it's crazy to me that it would be this much of a surprise that over the 4 years that he was on your coaching staff in your building, when you put in his contract to be the future head coach, that you would then see a product that thought we have to get rid of him after one season. So the whole way of how we got here with the Patriots having a head coaching opening, I truly hate everything about it. I really do. Now, the end result, it's perfect, right? This was the best case scenario for the New England Patriots. You get an absolute legend in the franchise of Mike Vrabel, who, part of the reason I think why he was available is because he ended up going to New England on Tennessee's bye week when he was still the head coach there. And, he talked about at his Hall of Fame speech for the Patriots, hey, don't take this organization for granted. I've been to a lot of places. It's not like this. So very clearly, Mike Vrabel has a lot of respect for everything that goes into the Patriots organization. He will be as bought in to making the Patriots great as any head coach candidate that would have been out there for them to get. So how they got to this point, and especially as a head coach who I don't think should have ever been fired from the Tennessee Titans, to be honest with you, it couldn't have worked out better for the Patriots. So even though I hate how we got here, I do understand the optimism now that Vrabel is in the building, now that he is the head coach for the Patriots moving forward, because you mentioned a couple of things of how much free agency money that they have, how much flexibility they have on the roster, and how you believe that they've already got the franchise quarterback. So it's truly going to be a blank canvas. And I believe much more so with Mike Vrabel, there is going to be time for him to build this team the way that he wants. And in his press conference, when he took the job as head coach, he talked about getting rid of entitlement in the building and building that culture. And I think that there is probably some reasons why he felt the need to continue to bring up getting rid of entitlement in the building, because he probably heard from credible sources and also maybe watched some things on the field on the film that gave away a little bit of this. So I think the Patriots are going to look completely different moving forward with Vrabel. And I think it's a home run hire. How they got here, hate it. The fact that they're moving forward with Vrabel, perfect scenario for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you have to just go, for as great as the Belichick Brady era was, now at this point you have to cut it off. You can't let it continue to linger and try to repeat that, try to replicate that, right? That's not how it's going to be. Mike Vrabel needs to build this thing in his own image alongside Drake May and figure out what goes around Drake May. And I think the big thing for me on the field is that he understands what you need to do to incubate a quarterback into success, right? You go back to his Tennessee days, and he had a whole boatload of talent. Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, a good old line around. Ryan Tannehill at the center of it all, right? Making his second stop after kind of, flunking out with the Dolphins. I think he understands what needs to happen here around Drake May. That's the biggest thing. And obviously, he's a great defensive guy, too, and we know he can handle a defense, and I think there's already some talent on this defense to work with. But creating this team in his own image, right? And I think he understands what it takes to win. And you remember the split from Tennessee was in part because he did not want A.J. Brown traded. He was not the one that wanted that. And they traded A.J. Brown. They ended up with Treylon Burks, and it all crashed from there. But he knows what it takes to surround a quarterback with talent, with proper talent that he can succeed with, right? And I think we could all agree that Drake May is probably more talented than Ryan Tannehill was. And I think Vrabel, it's about stability. The last 3 years in New England have felt unstable because they never had a plan post-Brady, and they never had a plan post-Belichick. They kind of took Mac Jones going, okay, this is our option, and this is what we have, and they got a little bit out of him, and they certainly never had they had a plan post-Belichick, but I don't know that it was all that well thought out. I think it's the danger of making promises to people and hiring first-time head coaches. You mentioned Mayo just being the linebackers coach, and he's a very good coach, on that front, I'm sure, but you don't really know until you've seen a guy do it, right? And they saw a year of Gerard Mayo knowing he had a bad roster, but they got blown out in a lot of games. And there were games where it felt like they just didn't compete, especially down the stretch of the season. And I think that was the big thing. And then, again, there was some criticism about his ability to handle himself with the media. I don't think you'll have any of those issues with Mike Vrabel. If nothing else, he is stable. He has won before. He made 3 playoff appearances in 5 years in Tennessee. And he understands what it's supposed to look like, both from his playing days and from his time with the Titans.
Nope, I agree with you completely. So, you look at the head coaching record for him. When he got hired as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, goes 9-7 that first year, 9-7 the second year. Then it's 11-5, 12-4, 7-10. And in that 7-10 season, when they started to kind of take a dip, Tannehill gets hurt. Tannehill was sort of over the hill. They had drafted Malik Willis. They had Will Levis in there. And so it just, man, it felt like the quarterback situation was kind of deteriorating during the latter years that Mike Vrabel was there with the Tennessee Titans. But it felt as though when he had the team in a spot that he was happy with, the 9-7 year, the 11-5 year, the 12-4 year, those seasons, the Titans won so many games I felt like they shouldn't have won, where they were outmatched talent-wise, one way or another. And to me, that's a sign of a great head coach. It is somebody who gives you the ability to win those types of games. You mentioned A.J. Brown. I wonder if A.J. Brown's a New England Patriot at some point. Look, I know he's in the playoffs. I know he's with the Philadelphia Eagles, but I can't help but wonder. We're seeing A.J. Brown. He's let his emotions get the best of him this season. He's sort of let his frustrations, I think, been on his sleeve when it comes to his situation in Philadelphia. I'm not saying it's imminent or anything. I just wonder if there's any chance at all that A.J. Brown might not be happy in Philadelphia anymore. Who the first person to pick up the phone is. It's going to be Mike Vrabel, the guy who never wanted him traded from Tennessee. anyways. So just something to think about there. You mentioned that they've got the most cap space to work with. I think that's why I think this roster is going to look very different when they snap the ball for the first time in week 1 of the regular season next year. So will be interesting to see how Gerard Mayo is able to, or sorry, not Gerard Mayo anymore. Mike Vrabel is able to retool that Patriots roster, like you said, in sort of his own image and how he sees the game and how he wants the game played. So I wonder if we're in for big changes here for the New England Patriots moving forward. But I love it for Drake May. I love it for this team. He's now got a stable coaching situation, and I think it's going to be fun to watch moving forward. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can come one today.